Buckle up, space travelers. It's time to go live on S4 with Eric Cooper.
Prepare to go to the edge.
3 years. Over 1,000 followers. 30,000 downloads in the archives.
Welcome to S4.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to S4, the official radio broadcast of Forest Moon Paranormal, with host Eric Cooper and our panel of enlightened minds. Coming to you live from FMP headquarters located in the heart of Skagit Valley, Washington, at the base of the majestic North Cascade Mountains. We will take you through a journey of exploration as we examine every aspect of the metaphysical. From spirits, UFOs, Bigfoot, and conspiracies, to grounding, protection, astral travel, and everything in between, leaving you with a better understanding and comprehension of the world around you, and the entities that inhabit it.
Join us every Saturday night at Spreaker.com and locally on KSVU 90.1. Don't forget to check out our new webpage at www.s-4radio.com.
Now sit back, open your mind, get ready, because this is S4.
Good evening or morning, depending on where you are, and welcome to S4, the dark voice of the paranormal and conspiracy, coming to you live from the S4 headquarters in the heart of the Cascade Mountains of eastern Skagit County and Washington State. S4 is the voice where you will hear everything covering all aspects of the paranormal, from hauntings and alien interaction, Bigfoot and other cryptids, and everything in between that makes you question reality. We also cover topics for safety such as disaster and terrorist response and preparation. Not only can you find S4 right here on Spreaker and www.s4radio.com, but for our local listeners also on KSVU 90.1 FM from 10 to 12 Saturdays with pre-recorded shows. So tonight, it's our Halloween Roundtable. It's the spookiest season. So we're stoked because we just got back from Cole and Kayla's family Halloween party with Spooks Beyond, and the kids loved it. So tonight with us we have Cole Wegleitner, the S4 co-host, Michael Hall, our paranormal lawyer, and Don Davidson, our California consultant, and a fellow Army veteran. So how are we doing, guys?
Wonderful. Doing great, Coop.
Awesome. You know, we haven't had you on the show for a while, Michael, so it's always good to make contact with you and see what you're up to and see how things are going down in Seattle. So what's new with you?
Yeah. Well, geez, this has been an amazing summer, by the way. You know, as far as paranormal activity and UFOs, the storming of Area 51, you know, I went down to Rachel, Nevada, and was all, you know, part of that whole thing down there for Alien Con at Area 51. That was quite an event. And that was very interesting down there. It turned out to be a pretty positive event, actually. People from all over the world showed up in this small little town of Rachel, Nevada.
It sounded like it just from what you were saying at Paracon when we talked to you.
Yeah,
That they actually made of kind of a positive presence.
Exactly. There was a lot of controversy about, whether it was going to be a black eye and ufology, whether people were going to get injured or anybody was going to get killed if they tried to storm it or whatever in the back gate of Area 51. And in reality, what happened was people showed up at the back gate at 3 a.m. on Friday, the 20th of September, and it ended up being like a big party out there. I mean, the camo dudes were taking selfies with everybody. The local sheriff's department was there. The private Wackenhut security guys were there. But everybody had a real positive attitude, and it turned out to be quite a PR thing for the military, actually. And from that point on, it kind of set the tone for the entire weekend, and it came off without a hitch.
That's great. We here on S4 are actually ready to do a moment of silence and whatnot for all the lives that were supposed to be lost. I could only imagine them having to send a warthog over an A-10 over if people did storm. But no, it's great.
Oh yeah.
It's great the way it turned out. It's great that they actually got a positive PR face for everyone that showed up, and the military essentially welcomed them all with open arms, and of course didn't let them on, but took selfies. That was cool.
Yeah. No, you would have been real proud, Coop, of your fellow military brethren out there, because whoever they decided to man the gate with during that event, of course they weren't going to take any guff from anybody, and they were just there to show their muscle if they needed to. But the people that they actually had there were very personable military personnel. They were able to, kind of get along with an international community of people who showed up, for that event at 3 a.m. in the morning, which is kind of a weird thing, but they actually showed up. About, not thousands of people, but like about 100 people from around the globe showed up with different accents, and of course all the press was there to record it all. And everyone treated the military with very high respect, but the military guys that were there were very personable, just did a great job of kind of fending off a few of the, people who were telling jokes and all that kind of stuff. And it turned out to be quite a positive thing for everyone that showed up, because it was a learning experience. People talking about what was really going on the Area 51. So I was glad I was there. I was able to podcast live for like 5 days from the little alien, there in Rachel, just kind of interviewing people from around the world. It was a lot of fun.
And so being at its Nellis Air Force Base, is that the training ground skirts Area 51, I would imagine was Air Force. They may have called some Army in, some Marines in, but I doubt it. And I can imagine how that went, and I know Don could too. Is okay, we got to have a PR face. We have to have our friendlier military. So no. You got UCMJ action against you, so you're not gonna go out there. So hey, Private Fredericks and Private Smith, you guys go ahead and go to the back gate. Can't you kind of see how that would go, Don?
Yeah, I can see that. Yeah.
But yeah.
Yeah, whoever put that military response together really did some training on that thing, because obviously they got all the firepower that they need, to stop anybody doing that. But they really turned it into a PR kind of a deal for the military, and they had some really quite personalities back there that were very disarming to some of the folks that might have been there for nefarious purposes, and everybody ended up having a real fun time, and it was quite informative, actually, for the folks that showed up.
And, so with that, they had a good at least 4 months preparation time, so I'm sure they went through some PR training, some additional how to handle the civilians, the side of things training. And so they were well prepared, because I know the governor of Nevada was very well all over it. They had the fire departments within several counties in the area. They had other state governors that were on standby for emergency response. So they had months in advance preparation time, and that goes with the military as well. Damn well the military had a lot of PR training on how to react and how to respond with minimal casualties. So, hands down, and yes, I am proud of the military, our military brothers and sisters that were out there to handle it.
Yeah, and they worked very seamlessly with the county sheriff. Local law enforcement were there, and they brought in other law enforcement from different states as well. There was well over a couple hundred military and private and county and state, law enforcement there on the grounds all over the place. And Rachel, at Area 51, they were very, a big presence. But I tell you what, they were all very approachable. I was having coffee with some county sheriff's, officers at the little Alien every morning. These guys are just hanging out with everybody else. They're all dressed up. They're all camoed out, and they got all their hardware and gear on and everything. But they were very, very easily to talk to. And of course, it was kind of fun. Those guys were all camoed up, and they're taking pictures with, people with alien costumes on at the same time.
Now, so were there any kids there? Did people take their kids with them? Was it a family-friendly kind of event, or was it primarily adults?
It was totally different than that one event that they did have in Vegas, where they had kind of like a young, rave thing for young people in Vegas. This one was a very family-friendly event in Rachel. Literally, motor homes galore, from all across the country. I mean, talking massive motor homes, and families would show up. A lot of kids with, their little alien bobbleheads on top of their heads. And there was lots of stuff for the families and people to do. They had the cornhole, beanbag tosses. They had all sorts of vendors from all over the place with all sorts of cool gear if you wanted to buy it. And of course, for the adults, they had like food vendors, and they had Bud Light there with the alien can, the alien head, beer cans, Coors Light was there. They were selling frozen margaritas in the middle of the desert, and this one vendor that was like had a line going down the block because it was so hot out there. And they had an $8 burrito to die for. You wouldn't believe the food, the burgers, and all that kind of stuff. And so it was kind of fun, because it was almost like it was a cross between a county fair and Woodstock is what it was.
And, that's weird, because that's not the image that was portrayed of what was going to happen, which is why I asked about kids, because I'm sorry, I wouldn't take my kids to an event like that. just because of the image that was portrayed in the beginning, that all these people are going to meet at 3 o'clock in the morning and storm a highly secure installation. That's not where I want my kids.
Yep.
Which is why I find
Exactly.
that weird. And so we had our booth at the fair, and we had quite a few people ask, "Oh, are you guys going to go storm Area 51?" And our response is absolutely not. Being military, I know better than that. No, no. So, yeah, I don't know if I find that disturbing that people would put their kids in potential harm's way, or if it was great that it turned out to be a positive experience.
Yeah. Yeah, and it actually, they had a bunch of bands. They had a whole lot of space, for the music venue. They are planning for Alien Stock 2020 already, and Connie West, who owns the little Alien along with her parents, and her family there, they want to make sure that it's totally family friendly, and they're even going to have, she says, next year they're going to have a children's stage for kids, music and kind of different things going on for kids because of all the people that showed up with their families this time.
Right. And and that's great, and that might actually change the image of ufology just based on that one little event. Not
Yeah.
saying it's going to cause disclosure, because I don't hold my breath on disclosure, period. But it changes the image
Right.
of Area 51 for sure.
Oh, it really did. It was, there was an event that was being planned for Hyco, Nevada, which is at the kind of beginning of the extraterrestrial highway, about 2.5 hours north of Vegas. But that one didn't come off as well. They didn't have a lot of crowds show up there. Everyone decided that they needed to get to ground zero in Rachel, because that's where basically they thought everything was going to happen. And so that's kind of what everybody ended up doing, is going out to this small little town where only 54 people live in this small community. And all of a sudden, the rest of the world, shows up literally. I mean, there was Al Jazeera news service was there. The New York Times was there. All the Vegas, news stations were there. People from I was interviewing press from Barcelona, Spain, and Scotland, England. They were a whole contingency of press from the UK were there, and it was kind of funny because these are kind of unique paranormal journalists, right? They're into this kind of thing. And they ended up basically interviewing each other from around the world because they don't get a chance to get together with each other, from different countries that are interested in UFOs. And I thought that was hilarious, where you had all these different accents out there and all this gear and all these, video gear and everything. And everybody's kind of like interviewing one another. It was, the History Channel was there. George Tsoukalos was there from
Really?
Ancient Aliens. And Nick Pope was there from the UK. Weird Desk out there, the Department of Defense.
Nick Pope lives in Arizona, I believe it is, anyway, so he wasn't that far. Tsoukalos, I think, is in California.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah.
Yeah, I guess I'm not really surprised that they would show up, because it's kind of a high profile potential, and they're not that far away. They probably drove there for that matter. So no, that's great.
Yeah,
that's great that it turned out.
And they were both
a positive event.
And they were both taking advantage of the opportunity to do their own. Or episodes of their own shows right there live from the little Alien, which was kind of cool and added to the old, atmosphere of the entire event. And, when people saw that heavyweights like that were showing up, and no one was getting hurt, and everybody was cooperating with one another. It really changed the atmosphere to the entire event, and it was almost as if the 50 years ago Woodstock kind of like vibe kind of resurfaced again out there in the desert. It was kind of interesting. I really enjoyed it, and I was so glad that I went.
Oh yeah, definitely. 'Cause it's great that we have a voice that actually went and can speak because they were there. Um,
Yep.
so uh, I'm switching topics because I do want to address that Forest Moon Paranormal. S4 is not the voice of Forest Moon Paranormal anymore. We're the voice of the dark side of the paranormal because we have gotten away from the team side of the group. The group is now going to be a very, I guess, interactive, lighter side of the paranormal as far as the group goes. Now we're going to do polls. We're going to do interactive questions. We're getting away from cases. We're getting away from the team side. It just we had a great year, great 7 years of running with 5 cases a day. That was monotonous to say the least for 7 years. The team got burnt out. We're done with that side. As of now, there won't be a Paracon next year, and all of our focus is going on S4. S4, we actually have a couple production or not production companies, book producing companies. I can't think of the word, but uh, that are going to actually, we're going to be able to review some books, get the authors onto the show, and actually do some interviews of some authors that have some great material out there. So be looking for a lot more interaction with S4. We have our new website that will be up next week. It's actually open now, so if you're listening to us live, and thank you, Izzy. Publishers, yes, publishing companies. um, so if you're listening live and you don't know how to get to the chat room, because some people don't, you go into where you're listening on the website, and you click the little chat button. There's a button that's it looks like a discussion bubble. That's the button you push if you want to enter the chat room. Because I did a poll, how many in FMP actually listened to S4, and out of all of them, 17 said they couldn't find the show. We're trying to make it easier for the ones that want to listen to be able to find us. So on that note, Don, how you been doing?
I've been doing good. Doing a lot. I got a new job, so I've been working on that one, and I've been absolutely loving it. So yeah, things are kind of going in my corner this past couple of months.
Excellent. You do better at a job when you enjoy it, obviously. So it's
Yeah.
When you actually wake up in the morning and you dread going to work, then you probably want to change jobs. Just saying. So anyway, Don, let's start with you tonight. So tonight is a Halloween theme for Roundtable. Next week we are getting deep into the Halloween side of things as we get closer to Halloween. But tonight is Roundtable, so we are doing a Halloween paranormal, and if you have a conspiracy question, throw it in. So what's your first question tonight?
My first question is, because I know that everyone, when Halloween comes around, they watch the paranormal shows, they get geared up for the spooky things, and so is the activity increased because we're actually looking for it, or is it because of the veil being so thin at this time?
And
you know what I'm saying?
I'm glad you asked that, because we've talked about that so many times on this show. So and I'm going to speak from the aspect that our caseload when we did cases never went up and never went down. Is there a veil that gets thinner? No, there's not. There is a veil, don't get me wrong, but that veil does not get thinner. So you're absolutely right with the question in that, yes, people, TV brings out more scary movies during the Halloween season because it is a creepy season. If you're on the Western Hemisphere, uh, it's winter here, whereas it's going on summer in Australia, and I guess it would be the Southern Hemisphere. I'm lost here. Um, but they're going on summer. We're going on the dark season. So, that's really why over here with Halloween, you expect to be scared. And this is, we'll get into Samhain and the pagan side of things next week. But there is no thinning of a veil that we've seen. We've done 5 to 7, sometimes 10 cases a day in the last 7 years, and it didn't go up. It didn't increase during this season, which tells me there is no thinning of a veil based on that. So people can communicate with spirits at any time of the year. They do it more during Halloween, I think, because one of the spook factor, and you got more horror movies out. That you got The Conjuring, you've got Witchboard, you've got a whole lot of movies that are addressed at Halloween. So I would agree that yeah, it's a psychiatric or a psych thing. You're anticipating it more, so you're pulling that energy in. What do you think, Cole?
I would agree. Um, I had a similar question, and I was going to ask if you guys thought that the idea that the veil thinned and the idea of, or does it compare to the idea of the month of October bringing in more spirits onto this side or making them stronger to appear more? And you stole my question. Thanks.
Again, next week is more is a lot deeper into this topic. But I will say that for those that are of pagan beliefs, this is the season where we have the ancestral altar, where we honor the dead. You have the day. You have a whole lot of cultures that have Day of the Dead holidays. Mexico has the Day of the Dead, All Saints Day. You have a lot of different cultures honoring the dead at this particular season, which I think also adds to it. What do you think, Michael?
Well, yeah, and it's that time of the year where you definitely notice the days are much shorter. The darkness lasts a lot longer. And so it's in the summertime when you're out and about and it doesn't stay, it stays light till 10 p.m. in the evening. You're not thinking about, the darkness or, you don't get back home and kind of hunker down so early. You're out and about, kind of outside. So it's just kind of a natural thing that when the days get shorter, the weather gets cooler, of course. And of course, the entire nature around you is changing. The colors, just burst out, and things are slowing down, and leaves are dying and blowing around. It just adds to that atmosphere of, something that's a little bit strange around the corner, and what is that shadow, that you notice that you didn't notice before because it was always light all the time.
And I totally agree. So I'm going to be bringing in Richard Benak. He was our astral instructor on the team. And I'll bring him in at 12 at the top of the next hour. So a lot of the pagan traditions and holidays are actually geared around seasons. You've got, again, I'll get a lot deeper into this next week, but it's an important aspect of what we're answering right now. in that, before they really knew how the world worked or how the seasons worked, uh, things of that nature. A lot of their Sabbats evolved around those beliefs and those theories. The darkening of the season, uh, I'm thinking here. The darkening of the season, the different deities that worked around those seasons, things of that nature. So Michael, what's your first question?
Well, I just wanted to ask if anybody on the panel tonight had a favorite ghost story that they might have heard, or maybe an experience that they had themselves. I have a pretty kind of bone-chilling ghost story myself that I'd like to share whenever we get the opportunity. But I thought if anybody had something that they'd like to, share with everybody, this would be a great night to do it.
That sounds great. You got one, Don? I'll put you on the spot.
Not entirely is it like a ghost story, but I don't know. Like I've got a few experiences. Like I guarantee you, the guard post in Iraq was haunted, but that's about all I've got.
Well, yeah.
Wow. Did you say?
Tell us about it.
Did you say? Yeah.
Real world experiences.
Okay.
Real world experiences kind of trump just stories. I mean, stories can be real too. I get that, but yeah.
Okay. So when I was in Iraq, we were inside of a building right next to an Iraqi police station, which was in front of a school. Now, we had two separate buildings. One was the guard tower. One was where we slept. And when I would go up into the guard tower, there's this one floor, the second floor, that felt so uneasy. I had to bolt up the stairs because it was just so uncomfortable. And I swear there's pebbles thrown at me at one point while I was in there. And that was the one place in all of Iraq, with all the bombs and all the shootings, that I was probably the most terrified.
I've heard of stories about creatures in Afghanistan that soldiers saw, and I think they saw the same thing in Iraq as well. I can't remember, but yeah, there's different cryptids. There's different cultural beliefs and theories in everywhere we've gone. That's why military has always been great about the stories of deployments, the stories of they always have soldiers die, and you're going to have soldiers' spirits still walking the beat, essentially.
Yeah,
that's common, especially with the the history of that continent always at war. I mean, Iraq, Syria, Iran, Turkey, all of them have intense violent history, and that's what causes spirits to be stuck.
Hey, Don, I'd like to ask a follow-up question regarding your experience there. Did you say that you experienced some pebbles or things thrown at you? You said in that
yes.
guard tower.
Yes.
Have
was like.
You want to explain a little bit about what happened to you and what you felt when you saw that?
I didn't necessarily see it. I felt it hit my ankle, and I heard the sounds. It was during the day, which is what I really was kind of weirded out about, because all the paranormal spooky stuff happens at night, but this was during the day, and I was going up there for, I think it was a 12 to 4 shift up there in basically staring off into space, but doing it with a purpose, I guess. But when I went up there, I wanted to face what was in there for a couple of seconds to see if I can see anything. And I think that personally, I think it was probably like, screw you, you ain't gonna be, you're not gonna man up to me right now. And they're trying to just get me out of there. I don't think the spirits and there were too friendly with us. So I'm wondering if we took over a bad spot, and that's what was going on.
It could be that, or honestly, it could be just they want your attention, because that's really
touche.
If it's just something as simple as them tossing something at you, or hey, I'm here, and that's it.
I was just worried about the negative feelings I was feeling in there.
Okay.
This is about the same time when you and I met, Eric.
Okay, gotcha, and that was in Telefar.
Yeah.
And so since you bring that up, Telefar being right on the border of Syria, think before there were borders. Think before Iraq and before there was a Syria, that was ancient Sumerian area.
Yeah.
So there was a lot of energy in that area. That predates all the war. Also,
that's true.
When it comes to that, there is no witching hour. There is no specific set time that spirits are active, whether it's daytime or nighttime. That's a big misconception, because you can go in a northern state, you can go into haunted locations at any time of the day and encounter something. The main reason they always focus on the nighttime is because, one, it's quieter. The equipment will work better because it's, there's no background noise. Your senses are more aware because it's nighttime, and so you'll pick up more. But as far as a set time, the only real time that you're going to find spirits most active is really if that particular spirit died at that point in time. You'll have some haunting cases that there is no intelligent response, because it's kind of like a record playing over and over again. They're stuck in that point in time, and they'll only come back on the anniversary of their death, on the anniversary of the disaster that happened, things of that nature. There's a train in the Fairhaven area of Bellingham that only comes, when is it, Cole? It's only in December that train comes through, isn't it?
No, I think it's in November.
Is it November?
I think it's November.
So, I mean, and you also hear of cases where people get stuck on train tracks, and this has been documented, where people, investigators actually put, because there was at one point on train tracks where you would stop your car on the tracks, and your car would get pushed off the tracks, because historically there was a busload of school kids that the bus got stuck on those tracks, and the train came and they all died. Now, some would argue and say, well, there was probably an incline and that's why the car rolled off the tracks. But some people, when they investigated that spot, actually put flour on the back of the trunk, and there were actual little handprints where the spirits touched the car and pushed it off the tracks. So, there's a lot of documentation out there to validate some of these stories.
That's fascinating.
Go ahead.
I was just thinking about Don's case in the guard tower there, and I've heard of these things called ports, where people will actually, see pennies that hit them, and they pick up a penny off the ground, or a pebble or something comes out of the middle of nowhere and hits them in the head. Just, not hurting them at all. But I've heard of these apports that just appear out of nowhere, and I was wondering if that might have been a real pebble that just appeared out of the middle of nowhere, by a spirit throwing it or whatever, but that it could have been a manifestation of something like an apport.
And it's funny you mention that, because I actually lived in an apartment in Georgia where pennies would materialize out of nowhere and fall at your feet. And that was the same apartment I lived in that a spirit actually made me a pot of coffee. Now, I say that because you have to actually pour water in the coffee pot to make a pot of coffee. Yeah, I know Cole's laughing at me because I'm sitting here actually pouring water and making images. But you have to pour the water in the coffee pot to make coffee. And something poured water in the coffee pot and actually made a pot of coffee for me. And I drank it, and it was weak, but it was great because the spirit made it. But, yes, things do or can materialize out of nowhere, and it is possible in Don's case that, a pedal materialized out of nowhere. What do you think, Don?
There was a lot of pebbles in the ground. It was an abandoned building, so it's hard to say it materialized. But then again, I cannot say where it came from. So, there's that.
Mm-hmm. And it takes a lot of energy for a spirit to be able to grab a rock and throw it too. That's a strong spirit.
Yeah.
So Izzy's in the chat room and she has a question. Excellent question. Because, everyone, and I absolutely agree, everyone always thinks of ghosts at Halloween. It's always hauntings. But have any of you noticed a change in UFO, alien, or Bigfoot and cryptid activity around the season? And I'm going to, Michael, have you noticed anything with UFOs on the rise at Halloween?
Well, yeah, and I'll tell you why. I think it might be a two-edged kind of sword where, one of my clients is, of course, Peter Davenport from the National UFO Reporting Center. He does say that he has currently spikes in reports coming into the National UFO Reporting Center, and he has, kind of like a two-prong approach to it. He thinks that because of the major, mainstream media now paying a lot more attention to UFOs, like the Nimitz encounter, and, the U.S. Navy, coming out with the gun camera footage, he thinks more and more people now are feeling vindicated and willing to come forth and make UFO reports. But also, he thinks, obviously, it's getting towards the winter time. It's a lot easier to spot a UFO during the nighttime because of the anomalous lights that you see, rather than during the daytime where something could be flying over your head at high altitude. You might not even notice it during the daytime anyway. So he doesn't quite know yet whether it's just because of the mainstream media becoming more prevalent in reporting these things without the snicker factor, by the way, that they used to have, or whether it's just the longer nights and being darker sooner that people are seeing more things. And by the way, he is now reporting, he says, more and more sightings of alien entities, he says, coming into the National UFO Reporting Center. People actually saying that they're seeing things that are supposedly out of this world, little ETs and tall white aliens, the whole thing. So fascinating reports are coming in.
I don't know if that's a good thing or a bad thing if they're showing themselves.
Well, can I ask something? Do you guys think that's a possibility of just being a spike from the Storm Area 51 raid thing, a spike in people seeing something what they want to see?
I got to add to that. has this been a spike? Was this a spike last year and the year before, or just this year? Because disclosures come up, because of Area 51's come up. That would be my question. If you want to look at statistics, you would have to look at the last at least 2 to 3 years in addition to this year. Is there a spike in October, or is it just a spike this October because of the events this year?
Yeah, very good point, because I don't have those statistics from Peter, although it would be very interesting to go to his UFO or New Fork website and take a look at the statistics yourself. It's fascinating because you can go to the National UFO Reporting Center on the internet and you can plug in any date or a place or even your own hometown, and you can find out the reports from your own area. So that's kind of fascinating to see if there would be a spike in the number at this time of year, in certain areas, or whether it's just because of, like you said, the mainstream media coverage of the Area 51 stuff and the Navy coming out with new regulations, for being friendly to report, their personnel reporting UFOs, whatever is going on is definitely seeming to cause more and more people to come forth now and explain what they've seen themselves.
And the weird part about the spike now is because, during the summer months, you see a spike because more people are watching the stars. More people are, the skies are clear because usually during the summer there's less storms, things of that nature. You don't see spikes now. It is darker, but it's also cloudier. You got more storms.
Yeah.
People aren't watching for UFOs, whereas they're watching for them more with, telescopes out. You got meteor showers, that kind of thing. You want to say something?
Yeah, so off topic a little bit, but anyone listening on the S4 Weebly website, if you have anything to say, if you're listening on the embedded player, right next to it there is, you'll see a big yellow play button, and then just 2 spots over, you'll see a little chat symbol, which is a little pop-up bubble. And if you just click right on that, you'll be able to join us right live in the chat site, and you can list your questions. Please put all questions in caps.
Excellent. Yeah, 'cause we do find that I don't know if people are scared of chat rooms or if they're cleaning the house, if they're just laying in bed listening to the radio. But we have more live listeners that don't go in the chat room. And that's fine. I have no problem with that. But if you want your questions answered on the air while we're live, that's how you do it. And we're already coming close to the top of the hour. That's cool. The show's just cruising right along. So in part 2 of Izzy's question with Bigfoots, big feet. Yeah, little feet, Bigfoot, cryptids.
With all the rain, he's looking more like a wet dog.
Yeah, I'd smell like one too. I don't have a good answer for that. That one I don't know. I know from our past Bigfoot specialists we had, they do tend to migrate to higher elevations. They follow the food. They follow the coyote packs, the wolf packs. So I would think, based on that information, you wouldn't see them so much. At the same time, it's hunting season, so I would expect to see more hunters and even loggers coming with reports, escalated now, but you don't. So is there more Bigfoot activity in this season? I'm going to have to say I don't know. I don't think so, though. What do you think, Michael? Do you have any information on Bigfoot?
It was funny you should mention that subject, because I just spent the evening earlier today with our friend Ron Moorhead, one of the Northwest's, or actually the nation's, experts on Bigfoot. Real nice guy, and he has the theory now that he's developing more and more that there is some kind of connection between UFOs and Bigfoot.
Mm-hmm.
So I would think that his response would say, it really doesn't matter, what time of year for Bigfoot. It just seems to me that there's some kind of connection there. Where there is UFO activity, there seems to be Bigfoot activity as well. That was very fascinating to hear him talk about that this afternoon when we were at the Olympic UFO meetup with Maureen Morgan and her MUFON gang over there on the Olympic Peninsula. Ron and his wife were there, and I got to spend some time with him. So he is doing a lot of stuff lately. Matter of fact, Johnny Manson is coming up with his Bigfoot conference in Quinault Beach again this November. So that'll be a big event coming up very shortly as well. He has quite a lot of speakers that show up at that one, including Ron Moorhead,
do you have
all those other guys.
Do you have a date for that?
I don't know if there's a date been scheduled yet for the November Bigfoot conference at Quinault Beach. But what people could do is they could call the Quinault Beach Resort and Casino out there and ask the tribe out there. They could tell them if it's scheduled at a certain time yet up there. And Johnny usually has the Bigfoot conference in November, and then of course the UFO Paranormal Fest in March sometime. So it's one of the largest festivals around the Pacific Northwest.
And that's the UFO Fest in March. So we're going to be tracking these kind of events, and we're going to be announcing them on the show, and hopefully attending some of them. And you can hopefully, depending, find S4 at some of these events. Sasquatch, thank you, Izzy. Sasquatch Summit, November 22nd and 23rd for local listeners that want to attend that. And we might actually look at that. Probably not, because there's a lot going on about that time of year for us. So Kayla wants to know too, and maybe you've asked this, Ron. Maybe you've asked Ron Moorhead, does Bigfoot hibernate? Did he have an answer for that one?
That's a good question. I have never asked that question of Ron. And I have never heard anyone really talk about that, whether that is, something that they do in the wintertime, hunker down and hibernate like bears do. Mm-hmm. With all of the, here's a good short answer to that question. With all the Bigfoot impressions, the actual, tracks that they've seen in the snowpack, it seems to show that these things are on the move even in the wintertime. And,
since you bring that up, I'd have to agree. Because, now that you mentioned that, Lake Tyee here upriver has Bigfoot tracks in the snow every winter. So based on that, I'd have to say, they don't. Also, going by what Tyler said, is they do go to higher elevations, especially in the Baker area. But I think that is an individual thing. I think maybe the family units of Bigfoot probably do follow the food packs, but the individuals stay lower, because Lake Tyee, I believe, is at least 1,500 to 2,000 foot level, which isn't that high. And, it's usually December, January time frame that they do start getting impressions and whatnot on Lake Tyee. And these are impressions. These are the cases where you'll follow Bigfoot tracks into the middle of a field and they just disappear, which is why I go with the interdimensional, because there's no trees for them to climb up. There's nowhere for them to go. nowhere for them to hide.
Lake Tyee is only 915 feet.
Okay.
Okay.
So that's a low elevation.
Yeah.
So, yeah, and they're not going to have snow. So we're supposed to be getting snow this weekend, actually today, probably right now, at the 2,500 foot level. It's been raining really hard, last few days. So I think the snow is coming lower. Because it's been at the 4,000 foot level for the last few days or so. And now it's dropping to 2,500. So we should be getting snow pretty soon. According to Cheyenne, our daughter, it's supposed to snow before Halloween. Hopefully she's wrong. I don't want snow before Halloween.
Wow. And another aspect of that issue about whether Bigfoot, hibernates at all is obviously one of their major food sources are the ungulates, the deer. And of course, deer don't hibernate. So, that they're active all winter long as well. And you would think that the Bigfoot, since we've seen the tracks and everything, they're on the move potentially, looking for their food source as well.
Right. Now, I do want to address, we're coming close to the first break, but I do want to discuss the Bigfoot UFO connection. Because, I have heard cases where, and I've said this on the show before, but I have heard cases where, a witness will see a landed craft land in the woods. Bigfoot will come out. He'll take soil and water samples. He'll get back on the craft will take off. I've heard the other flip side of that, where witnesses have seen a Bigfoot. They've seen a UFO. Bigfoot runs away terrified. And I've said this on the show before. If aliens are abducting humans, why wouldn't they be abducting Bigfoot as well? And that's why they'd be running terrified.
Because I imagine that would be trying to trap exactly like trying to trap a Wookiee.
Exactly.
That ain't gonna happen.
You still with us, Don? Oh.
Yeah, I'm with you.
Okay, you just listening. Gotcha.
Yep.
Okay, yeah. On that note, we are going to go to first break. So stay with us, and when we come back, we'll have Richard Bernack with us, and we'll carry on with Roundtable.
You are listening to S4 on Spreaker.com.
Forest Moon Paranormal is a non-for-profit emergency response team that handles all aspects of the paranormal, helping you, your family, friends, and community since 2004. Whether you're having a problem with hauntings, spirits, Bigfoot, other types of cryptids, or UFO activity. Maybe you're just unsure of what's bothering or terrifying you. Or maybe you're just afraid of criticism and disbelief. FMP is here for you. We handle cases globally and locally from our headquarters in Skagit County, Washington. We never accept any form of payment for our services and are 100% confidential. You can find us on Facebook under Forest Moon Paranormal. You can private message us for assistance, or just come join in the discussion and become part of our growing FMP community.
Hey S4ians, please check out one of our newest sponsors, Wiser Books. They're an imprint of Red Wheel Wiser. They publish books across the entire spectrum of occult and esoteric subjects. Their mission is to publish quality books that will make a difference in people's lives without advocating any one particular path or field of study. They value the integrity, originality, and depth of knowledge of their authors. Please check them out at redwheelwiser.com.
We've had several days of 80-degree plus weather here in Concrete, Washington. My family's favorite way to keep cool in this heat is to stop by Java Zone 2 and grab a delicious iced latte for me and a blended mocha for my husband. Our son just loves their creamy milkshakes, and our daughter can't get enough of their ice cream. The best part is, Java Zone 2 is conveniently located just off Highway 20 beside Loggers Landing. And I'm proud to shop local for a business that has been a staple of the Concrete and Upriver community since it opened its doors in 2010. So if you're looking for a way to keep cool in this summer heat, come check out Java Zone 2. They're fast, friendly, and local.
All of us here at S4 and Forest Moon Paranormal would like to thank everyone who attended and supported our 2019 Paracon. It was an amazing event that we couldn't put on without our sponsors, our speakers, and our volunteers. Be sure to keep an eye on our Facebook group, Forest Moon Paranormal, for all your updates on Paracon 2020, September 26th, 2020. Thank you again to everyone. Well, hello there. Us here at S4 would like to remind you out there that the UFOI team weekly meetings are broadcast live on Facebook from Denny's, where America eats, each Monday night, 6 to 8 p.m. Pacific Standard Time at UFOI Team on Facebook. The UFOI team's gear, product store, and newsletter are located on their website at ufoiteam.com. To contact the UFOI team with your sightings report or a paranormal story, send an email to theufoiteam@gmail.com. Keep looking up and tell us your story. Hey everyone, Cole here with S4 Paranormal Radio, the official voice of Forest Moon Paranormal. Looking for a way to get the word out there about your business, group, team, or product? Let us help you. A few clicks is all it takes to get started at s-4radio.com, or you can contact me at 360-999-2830. Welcome back to S4 with your host, Eric Cooper.
All right, welcome back to S4. And I'm trying to call in Richard here. Richard, you with us yet?
Yes, Eric. How are you doing?
Oh, outstanding. Oh, my God. Talk about timing.
Hey, Richard.
Oh.
Hello.
All right. So, and I was talking to Richard before the break, and he knows to have his 3 questions. We had to let Michael go. Michael has to get up early in the morning. He had to bow out. I'm gonna turn the wheel over to Cole real quick because I didn't get a chance to grab my coffee real quick. So take over, Cole. And if you want, Richard, what's your first question tonight?
Well, good. One of the big things I've always been curious about is what's the relationship between Halloween and the Catholic holiday of All Saints Day, basically Samhain, and this Catholic holiday of November 1st.
So, the relationship is basically the origination of Halloween is All Hallows Eve. So it was a day of preparation. The actual what we celebrate in America today as Halloween has absolutely no coincidence with All Saints Day. All Saints Day is considered a day of prayer where you celebrate the saints of your choice, pretty much, the saints that have helped you throughout your life. Halloween, as we see it today, the Catholic Church itself can't condone that. The biggest connection I would see is the fact that All Hallows Eve is the day for in Mexico, I believe, isn't it Day of the Dead that they celebrate on the 31st?
Yeah, that it's Dios de los Muertos, Day of the Dead.
So, yeah, And with that, celebrating your ancestors, you would celebrate them that day and then, or that night, I believe. And then the next day you would celebrate in church of all the saints. Because Mexico itself has a very large population of Catholics. It has over 91% of its total population are Catholic. So Mexico's influence within the Catholic Church has been huge.
Well, with that, isn't Catholicism the main religion in Mexico?
Yes, 91%.
Okay. I'm just not getting back on board. I got you. And yeah, so they have the Day of the Dead shortly within the same range, of Halloween, Samhain, All Saints Day. All Saints Day is Catholic, correct?
Yes.
Yeah. So, yeah, it's many different cultures, really, that all celebrate death. I mean, honoring your ancestors kind of issue around the same time frame.
So Catholics are the only ones that actually celebrate the saints. No other Christian religion celebrates them at all.
No, you're absolutely right. Yeah, we won't even touch that one. So does that answer your question, Richard?
Yes. I didn't realize the Mexican aspect of it, but that kind of makes sense.
Yeah.
I will say though, if I see a kid come up to the door and he says he's dressed up as like Saint Christopher, that kid's getting 2 candy bars.
Right. Oh.
The big kind.
All right. So how? I'm going to throw a question in there. Usually I kind of wing it because I usually have a panel that brings a whole bunch of questions in. But do you guys think, this country has really never been this divided with as far as the negativity goes? Do you think the negativity that's being raised around the world really has anything to do with this, time period of paranormal activity?
I don't want to answer this because my answer's a joke. Because I would lead back to the great time of 1989 when in New York City, Vigo used the Vigo the Great used the negativity of New York City to bring himself back to life. For those that don't know that reference, it is Ghostbusters 2.
Why Ghostbusters 3 now? So what do you think, Don?
As far as the negativity in this time of year?
No, look at the country right now, and I'm not making this politics. I'm trying not to make it political at all, but look at all the negativity and the division that we do see in our country, and it's spilling into the UK. It's spilling into what's always been in the Middle East. But I mean, it's really you're seeing political division. You're seeing world leader division. You're seeing division all around the whole planet, which is one hell of a beacon.
Activist division is a big one right now too.
Right. Do you think that's a draw for malevolent entities?
Or is it caused by malevolent energies? Not necessarily a draw to them, but maybe caused by them.
And that's a possibility. What do you see from the astral side, Richard?
It's an excellent question. I haven't seen much in the astral, but my personal belief is that Nastiness and evil are drawn to chaos and just problems, and we're seeing much more of that, and so it tends to draw it in. Now, whether it's because of the people taking advantage of it, or whether it's because something's maybe supernatural is taking advantage of it, I think it's just an opportunity. Anytime you see political and social chaos, this is a drawing card for every nastiness, both human and supernatural.
And I'd agree. And Kayla's, and I don't even know how to answer that one because I don't know enough about black-eyed children. But Kayla's got a question: do black-eyed children trick or treat? That's a good question, but usually black-eyed children, from my experiences with the reports of them, I would have to say probably not, because they don't want to trick or treat. They want to come in your house.
They just trick.
Right. They want to come inside and you say no. And then they get really angry and they start hitting stuff. They get really angry when they get told no. But, all kids do. Do black-eyed kids trick or treat? Probably, if it's one of our kids dressed up as a black-eyed kid. Anyone else got another thought on that?
Izzy wants to know, what are black-eyed children?
Oh, of course she does.
Well, that's when your kid gets into a fight at school and comes home with two black eyes.
Yeah. So, black-eyed children is still a mystery. It depends on who you ask. Some would say there's an alien connection. Some of them say there's a demonic connection. I just say it's another kind of entity that's really misunderstood, or rather, not much is known about them. You don't hear about the ones that actually open their door. Because, if you open the door, they tend to be destructive. That's about the most I know about them. That's an area I haven't really examined, because we don't get those kind of cases.
Is there any idea of where they come from?
No. Richard, do you know much about the black-eyed kids?
No, I've heard the term, but I don't really know a whole lot about them. So, I'm very open to learning more about them, but I don't know anything specific.
So, if we want to do a black-eyed children's show, I know Christina George has encountered them, and we'll have to pull her in on another show and actually just do a show on black-eyed children. Because according to her, there's also black-eyed adults as well. Much less encountered as the children are. In fact, a lot of the encounters are in both Texas and California. Have you heard anything about the black-eyed children in California, Don?
Not in California. I've got a general sense of the black-eyed children as far as like what I see on certain shows on TV and on the radio, but other than that, not really a whole lot has been said.
So what do you heard on TV and on shows? Again, folks, S4 is not a show that knows it all, not by any means. We throw out the information we know, that we know both through experiences and research, but that doesn't say go out there and take the topics that we talk about, prove us wrong. Do your own research, but just don't use Wikipedia. So
what I've heard.
Yeah, tell us what you've heard, Don.
What I've heard on the radio and it's basically what has already been said. It's that they knock on your door and they want to come in, and as they come in, then something bad happens to the household. Whether that's destruction or disappearances. So again, this is a topic that I honestly would like to kind of dive into myself. Mm-hmm. And figure out what they are and what they want, because maybe they are like you know what I mean? Like maybe they're being destructive because they're not understood. That's the only way that they know how to react. You know what I mean?
Yeah, and that's possible. And I've heard the same thing. People disappear if the black-eyed kids come in your house. And that's why you don't hear about what happens if they come in the house because, well, the people are gone. And so the first case I know I heard about happened in Texas, and it happened not in a house, but the guy was sitting in his car, and the black-eyed kids came down an alley, knocked on his window, and asked for a ride. And he told them no. There were 3 of them, and they started hitting his car. He sped away, and when he looked in his mirror, there was nobody there. They were gone. But yeah, we can get Christina George on the show and just do a show on mystery entities, basically, in black-eyed children, specifically. So, Cole, what's your question for tonight?
I'm not there yet. What I wanted, so just thinking that black-eyed children thing got my mind working on that, and I'm trying to think of how something like that can come into existence. So I'm wondering what you guys think of this. So we all know there's energy vampires throughout the world. Do you think it's a possibility that an energy vampire could feed off a pregnant woman, creating that kid to turn into an entity itself?
I don't know.
Yeah. I mean, I think an energy vampire could definitely cause significant destructive energy for the kid and, mess it up at some level, but I don't know whether it would necessarily turn it into a black-eyed child or not. Definitely would negatively impact them, though.
On that note, I would think, I don't think black-eyed children are living as far as our concept of alive. I think they're an entity type. So if that was the case, it would be a dead fetus, maybe stillborn, maybe past, and then turn into a black-eyed child. That could be a possibility. As far as where they come from, I do think they're a dimensional creature.
Okay.
There's countless dimensions out there besides astral. There's astral, and then there's multiple dimensions of various entities and beings that you don't ever want to pull into this world, let alone encounter. I think they come from one of those dimensions. And we have dead air. Don?
All right.
We're all thinking. What do you think about that, Don?
I'm sorry, I was researching black-eyed kids. What did you say?
So, do you think an energy vamp could affect a living fetus in a woman to create a potential black-eyed child when it was born?
That might, I don't know if it'd make a black-eyed child, but maybe another energy vampire.
Yeah.
With the energy being taken away from it, it's going to need energy when it comes out of the womb. So it's going to take energy from those around it. I mean, you could argue that a black-eyed child could also be a energy vampire at the same time.
And that's a good possibility. Again, not enough is known about the black-eyed children from witnesses.
I can't really find anything other than anecdotal stories on the internet. So,
hey, if it's on the internet, it's got to be true.
yeah, right.
Absolutely. So, Don, what's your next question?
My next question is going to take us into another realm, but like with this being Halloween, with all the horror stuff that's out there, what's your guys' favorite horror movie? What movie scared you the most? As far as like what's your ultimate horror movie?
I really enjoyed Halloween, the original.
Say that again, Richard?
I was saying I enjoyed the original Halloween movie. I remember that when it first came out, and it was like it scared me a whole lot. It was a new type of genre in some ways in how it presented the whole Halloween stuff. I think it set up a lot for the modern horror film.
And you know what intrigued me about the Halloween movies the most, and I can't remember which one it was. Halloween 3 was just flat out stupid because it went completely off Michael Myers and had nothing to do with Michael Myers. But I think it was Halloween 4 when they introduced the trench coat character with the cowboy boots. And they never really went into that character. You didn't know who that was. And I still don't know who that was. But you're going to make me go back and have a Halloween binge. I don't get jump scared anymore, so it's hard for me. I think the scariest one I probably watched was the Hellraiser series, to be honest with you.
Oh, I love those movies. I'm a big horror geek, so I love all horror stuff.
We had a pepperoni Hellraiser today. That was cool. Izzy made one.
It was awesome.
But yeah, when it comes to horror movies, like I said, Hellraiser is probably the scariest I watched. But figuring out how that was back when they first came out, well, yeah.
Cool. I remember watching Hellraiser as a kid, and it was pretty scary.
Yeah. Well, so Pinhead never scared me, but I think it was in the first one where they had that worm-looking creature that came down the hallway. That was probably the scariest creature out of Pinhead's little crew.
Well, the Xenobites also, the minions that were following him with the wires wrapped around their faces and pulling their lips and exposing their jaw lines, and that series has a lot of iconic horror iconography.
Well, it took back when the Hellraiser series came out, the big genre was slasher. So you had Michael Myers, you had Jason, you had Freddy Krueger, and in all reality, they were all slasher flicks. Hellraiser took it to a whole new level.
It turned it into a psychological thing.
Oh,
the fear of death and the unknown.
Yeah, and the cube. The whole cube opening up the worlds.
Kind of like a Pandora's box.
Right. So, Cole, what's your favorite?
Okay, so mine comes with spoilers, just so you guys know. A little bit, not really, but mine isn't a show or a movie. It's a TV series, and it was The Haunting of Hill House on Netflix.
Yes,
so there is a scene. There is a scene in the first season where the two sisters are sitting in their Jeep. And they are driving to a location, and the third sister, who has died, comes up between them and screams bloody murder. That scene made me jump. My issue is that is the only type of thing that can actually scare me. They actually have to surprise me, because I grew up in an era where Freddy Krueger was kind of getting older, and by the time I was allowed to watch him, he was a cult classic already, and it was a joke. You know, he wasn't scary. Jason wasn't scary. None of them were scary to my generation. And the ones that were coming out were more psychological, and at that point, I was too young to get that kind of thing.
Yeah.
So, and then once we actually advanced to the new type, like The Conjuring, I was already an adult, and it didn't bother me at all. So the only thing that can actually scare me at this point is a jump scare. And that can get me rattled for about 5 minutes, but then it's over. So I don't actually enjoy that many horror movies anymore. The only thing I really enjoy about them is the way they're made and how well they can actually produce the jump scares and keep them coming so that you are constantly on your feet almost.
Absolutely. And, you know, it brings me to a question. So, Stephen King aside, you know, some of our favorite horror uh, authors and producers aside, where do you think some of these ideas for some of these horror movies come from? Do you think some of them are based on reality? Look at 13 Ghosts. Look at, well, we know The Conjuring is based on fact, based on the Warrens' experiences. Now, the thing I think, the best about the Conjuring movies is with Annabelle, and is if you look at the Warrens and how they investigated back then, you actually see paranormal investigators working old school. That was original paranormal investigation, when they actually put flour on the floor to see if there was going to be footprints. When you actually saw them put bells on string to see if spirits could actually physically make the bells ring. You know, that was old school paranormal investigation. The more investigators that come out with technology, the easier it is manipulated by the paranormal. It takes a lot of the realism of evidence and investigation out of the picture. What are your thoughts on that?
I actually I agree. A lot of it, from what I've seen, is we're losing the whole concept of being an investigator and much more of a sort of a techie type. It's like I've got my tools and my tech stuff, but sometimes you lose the whole question and the attitude of the investigator, and that's the key to any paranormal investigation, not your tools or whatever cool tech you have.
I agree. And, you know, you have these teams that come out and say they're doing it for science. Well, if you're going to do it for science, you need to be able to replicate the experience. That's what science is. You get the question that you want answered. You put down the you know, the field of theory that you want answered, and then you have to replicate it. You're not replicating the experience with technology. Running around with an EMF meter and getting an EVP is not science. I think if you want science, you look at how the Warrens investigated. A lot more realistic than what you see today. Would you agree?
I would agree, and because every time I watch these paranormal shows, and I watch them a lot just for laughs, and they've got these newfangled technology things going around saying, "Oh, this is the new technology. This is what's going to prove that ghosts exist and whatnot." They never answer the question about the variable of equipment malfunction, or what it's actually reading, or how does the spirit really know how to manipulate? Like they said that the ghost can manipulate this device and say yes or no. But how does the spirit know how to manipulate to get to that specific answer for that computer chip to make that correlation? So with the addition of technology, it's just adding much more fluff.
Well, and it's easier to manipulate. It's easier to get a false reading with electronics.
Yeah.
You look at the facts. So I've actually gone on sites where we had completely charged batteries. The batteries were brand new or they were just bought. And we went into a site and the batteries, the cameras went dead. The radios went dead. The EMF meters went dead. You go back out off the site and everything's fine. So, and you hear the same scenario from a lot of different teams where they have brand new batteries. They go into a house to investigate and the batteries malfunction. The batteries go dead. Sometimes the batteries are just completely drained and they don't work when they come back out. So, as soon as you get, I think Markham, our scientist, wanted to use the old reel-to-reel to try using old reel-to-reel for EVPs. You take the digital side out and you go reel-to-reel and you're going to have a real EVP session. Even the old tape deck style. What's your thoughts, Cole? You're sitting there. You're sitting there thinking.
So, with the new technology that you have, the only way I could explain that a ghost would know how to manipulate the entirety of like an actual microchip is to say that okay. It has been said on S4 before that it is an option to go to the other side and come back. It is my belief that if you go to the other side, a lot of things become clearer. So I do believe that they have the knowledge of our microchips or have help in that sense. Like manipulating a microchip, you don't have to have a lot of knowledge to do that because you're not actually doing it. You're manipulating radio waves. You're manipulating radio waves or frequencies or not space, but the area around you, the energy around you. So if you're manipulating those, all the microchip is doing is picking that up. You're not actually manipulating it itself.
Well, that's also what creates hot and cold spots. Is the manipulation of the energy to materialize or to affect change in our environment. That's what hot and cold spots are. So what do you think, Don?
I think that actually makes a lot of sense. Like, because when you pass on, if you're able to go to the other side and come back, you're going to have the knowledge of the universe, essentially. So yeah, that would make sense. But how would we prove? Again with these shows, that it's like how are you going to with the science? You have to be able to prove your theories, and they don't. So it's not on us, I guess, right now to figure them out. But that does make a lot of sense to me.
That's what I hate about paranormal TV so much. Is you go on about 80% of these group sites, and most of them say, "We're here for the science of the paranormal." No, you're not. You're here to play with toys. Just say it like it is. So, what do you think, Richard?
I tend to agree. I think a lot of it, like I said, the technology, people get so enamored with technology, they don't understand the weaknesses of it and the vulnerability of it to being manipulated. So, or they don't necessarily understand what it's telling them. So what you're getting is people basically just repeating what they think the machines are telling them versus understanding what's actually happening. It's that interpretation, that aspect, the analysis of the information that's key. week, at least from what I've seen in some of the TV shows.
So let's broaden this a little bit. So when you're talking Bigfoot, what's interesting with Bigfoot is there's been so many cases of people that set game cams out, me not included. The game cam we set out didn't pick up Bigfoot; it picked up Faye, but and a grouse. But you hear so many stories about these people that set up game cams to catch Bigfoot, and you'll actually see wildlife around the camera, and then the camera goes white, and you hear primate noises, and then the camera goes back to normal. Now, if that was a camera glitch, the camera wouldn't go back to normal, but only in Bigfoot's presence or the aspect of Bigfoot's presence does the camera go white. You won't see him, but you'll hear him, and then he'll leave, and it goes back to normal, and you'll see wildlife again. That is another indicator to me that Bigfoot's interdimensional, because that's what an interdimensional interaction with a camera would do. So when it comes to UFO activity, the biggest thing you want to look at is radiation. So if you get a landed craft site, you want to check for radiation traces. If there's a crop circle, you want to actually get some soil and plant samples and see if there's any cellular structure changed, because that's a common aspect of true crop circles. It's only really the haunting side where you see you see more activity or more equipment being manipulated. And Izzy wants to know, are Fae more active this time of year? And again, she kind of knows the answer to that because we have Fae around headquarters here. But the actual Fae month, where people say Fae are the most active, is actually, I believe, June 22nd. And that's when they say the veil is thinnest. I don't agree, but that's when the Fae are supposed to be most active, is in June. And I think that's mostly because it's midsummer.
Okay. The veil is starting to sound more like TSA.
What?
It only allows certain things through at certain times. Yeah.
We are kidding. So what do you guys think about Fae? Are Fae more active now? Are you researching again, Don?
No, but I am thinking that they've been on my mind a lot lately, so probably.
Did you tell him to get off?
I'm sorry?
Did you tell them to get out of your mind?
No, I let them kind of, as long as it doesn't get too too intrusive, it's not entirely bad, I don't think. I have a connection with the Fae, I feel, that is not a bad one.
Well, that's good. What do you think, Richard?
I think, like I said, the Fae have always been part of us. They've been part of our culture. I think I've got a friend from Ireland, and they're always telling me like a lot of mysteries are associated with the Fae. I think there's just in some cultures it's much more accepted their impact. Over here, we tend to maintain a higher level of skepticism. But I think if you go over to some parts of Europe, maybe the old world, it's just there. It's always there, and it's just considered it's normal. So, but I don't know if they're necessarily more active around Samhain, but they're just always considered active.
And since we're on Fae, why don't we see more Fae movies? I think Midsummer Night's Dream has a lot of fae. But I'm trying to think.
Peter Pan.
Huh?
Peter Pan.
What? Anime? Or what are you thinking?
You just made like 50,000 millennials cry by calling Peter Pan anime.
Oh, okay. Oh, I thought you said Japan. Okay. No, yeah, Peter Pan, yeah. Well, and the whole Tinkerbell series. Now, and Legends of the Guardians. That's another one. Because they actually kind of portray the Tooth Fairy as having Fae helpers.
Gremlins?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Bogeyman. There's a movie called Bogeyman, I think, too. But why is it so? Honestly, most people watching Gremlin wouldn't put them in the same category as Fae, which they are, but they see that as an evil creature that's, well, they're not good, but they portray them as monsters. Um, but why do you think it is that they don't portray Fae so much in a positive light, with the exception of two kids with Tinkerbell?
Well, you got to think 90% of Faye movies, they're considered a sidekick. Even Tinkerbell. It was only her interaction with small children that allowed her to become bigger later, but originally she was Peter Pan's sidekick. I think, Kayla, you know the name of this movie. Willow. Willow, there's those two small guys.
Pixies?
They get drunk. Yeah.
Yeah, pixies are cool. Izzy'd argue with me on that one, but pixies are cool. So yeah, Izzy's saying Ferngully, Maleficent, Darkness Falls. You know what? She didn't like Darkness Falls. I thought Darkness Falls was pretty cool. Brownies. Not the ones you eat. Not the edible.
Are you hungry or what?
So what do you think, Richard, Don?
I think one of the reasons they're not shown a whole lot in movies is just because they're very complicated creatures, and basically the movies like to make things very simple. So they're good, or they're evil, and the Fae, is much more complex than that. So it doesn't necessarily make a good villain, but they don't necessarily make a good hero. So
True.
They get ignored.
And Kayla says Strange Magic, and Izzy is saying The Borrowers. I don't think I've ever seen The Borrowers.
It's actually a book by Roald Dahl.
Huh?
The Borrowers is a book, I think, by Roald Dahl.
Okay.
And it's actually a really good book.
I do like the portrayal of Fae in Lord of the Rings, because they do have
dwarves.
No, they have dwarves too, but they also have the elementals, and they have the help me out here, Izzy. The
Wood Ents.
The Queen of the Fae was in that one. The Queen of the I should know this.
Elves.
Yeah, Queen of the Elves. So yeah, I think Lord of the Rings actually does a pretty good variation. They also have the moving trees, the dryads, as well.
Well, the different types of elves are also represented. There's actually 3 different classifications of elves in that.
Right. So what do you think, Richard? You got anything to add?
No, I think we pretty much covered it, in my opinion, on the whole thing, and how they're portrayed.
Okay, let's see. Cole.
Okay. So, out of the basic The basic old horror film monsters, we all know that a lot of them are based off true, in some way, true beings or entities. So vampires are based off energy vampires. The Wolfman is based off the Wolfman. Swamp Thing is based off Swamp Thing. A lot of them didn't change over time, but the one I have never seen an area of building for is Frankenstein. Do you think there have been any type of creatures that could be related to the point where the Mary Shelley would have actually had the inspiration for Frankenstein out of an entity?
Oh, government conspiracy. Look at super soldiers.
Okay, yeah, I see that one.
Yeah, look at Operation Paperclip. I mean, you know, we talk conspiracies here. So look at, you know, Operation Paperclip was where we brought all the scientists from Nazi Germany. We got them basically out of the court system in Geneva and brought them here. So you had the rocket scientists were working on the atomic program. You had the psychiatric scientists working on MK Ultra. You had the biology scientists working on Plum Island in the biolabs. So you know it's highly feasible that you had some of them working on a Frankenstein, the super soldier, the perfect soldier to take back into war.
I think a lot of also what it was tied to is the whole fear of grave robberies. Back in that time, there were a lot of, you know, how medical students picked up bodies was they hired some sketchy people to go dig up bodies. So I think that, you know, the Frankenstein in many ways reflects that overall fear that, you know, when you put a loved one in the ground, they may not stay there. Somebody might come up and dig them up. So it's that underlying social fear then manifests as the Frankenstein monster.
And that's a good point. That's an excellent point. And you know, you look at today, and so if someone goes and does grave robbery, oh my God, how rude. But back then in the 40s and 50s, it was just creepy and oh my God, they came back to life. It was more science fiction-y. I mean, granted, it was still a crime. It was still, you know, seen as taboo. But I think in the science fiction era, in the 40s and 50s, when the original Frankenstein was around, it might have put a little more twist to it. Don?
Yes, what's up?
What do you think?
I'm sorry, I had to check my daughter. I wasn't I wasn't part of the conversation on this one.
So Frankenstein.
Yeah.
What do you think? So Cole's question was, you have all these creatures that are somewhat based on fact. You know, you got Swamp Thing. You've got. I mean, they've even done movies on Loch Ness Monster. But all these different creatures they've done movies on have some based on fact to them. What about Frankenstein? Where do you think Frankenstein came from, besides someone's creative mind? Do you think there's any fact based on Frankenstein?
I think it's the human. I mean, this is probably the textbook answer, but the human fear of death and probably wanting to prolong life, simply by trying to use science to do it. But with the based on fact that you're asking, I think that it could have been. It could be something to the effect of a scientist trying to play God, essentially. I mean, it could have very well have happened.
Yeah, and that's why I said, yeah, I would say if it happened, I'd say the government, whether it was not, whether it was the Nazis working on the super soldier and it coming over to America, and the U.S. government working on the super soldier program, I'd equate that with Frankenstein.
Oh yeah, definitely. That would make sense actually. The government's trying to utilize it for their, because I mean, if technically the soldiers didn't die, then you know what I mean, like.
Well, look at Captain America.
Oh, I was thinking about him just now.
Captain America, technically, if I remember right, died in combat and they brought him back. Super soldiered, essentially, but you got anything to add, Cole?
No, I think that just about covers that one.
Oh, so Don, you got
yes. We're actually coming.
We actually have about 5 more minutes. And we go to break. So what's your next question?
It's kind of going to go along the same lines as the last one, but I'm going to go ahead and tell you guys mine before I ask you yours. My favorite Halloween memory was back when I was about 12 years old, when I just moved to California, and we were going down Cape Art housing, which my dad was in the Air Force, and it was a big Air Force community, and the single soldiers single airmen, I should say, all dressed up in werewolf costumes and Dracula costumes, and we're just going all up and down the streets of the housing tract to scare the kids. And when I got to the end of my street, there was a headless horseman riding on horseback, running around this field and running after, like, pretending to run after the kids, and it was just an amazing experience. So what is your guys' favorite Halloween experience?
I got to break in here real quick too, because Izzy corrected me. Frankenstein actually
came out in 1818. Are we still here? Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, Frankenstein actually came out in 1818, so yeah, it wasn't the 40s and 50s. Which adds even more, fear factor to grave robbing, kind of.
Yeah.
Okay, so we got about 5 minutes. So I'll tell my favorite Halloween prank, actually, in the next hour. So what was your favorite Halloween memory, Richard?
It was back when I was a kid in Brooklyn, just going around the neighborhood in the early 60s. It seemed like it was a much simpler time. People knew each other. You went and much more knew about your neighbors. And I don't know, when my kids went trick-or-treating, it didn't seem like everybody knew everybody. Sometimes you went to, the nicer neighborhoods because you knew they gave out a candy. It wasn't a neighborhood activity. At least that was my perception right now versus when I was a kid.
Excellent. Cole, favorite Halloween prank or memory?
So mine would actually be kind of a little bit of a two-part, but it's quick. So I remember when I was about 8 years old, I went trick-or-treating, and my dad took us out. And one of his old customers that he used to work on his car gave my dad a shot of tequila. And I thought that was kind of cool. And so we walked up a couple houses, and the next house gave him a coffee with Bailey's in it. And I'm like, wow, even adults trick or treat. These two gentlemen that did that for my dad, I remember when I turned 18, which in Alberta, that's the legal drinking age. they were both still good friends with my dad, and I made sure to walk up to both their houses on Halloween and say, hey, it's my turn. I think that would be my favorite one because they both did have that drink for me. So,
and that's outstanding. So we're going to go ahead and let's see. So I'm going to tell you a little bit about, we have a couple minutes, and I don't want to tell my story. It's going to be about a 5-minute story. Happened at Jimmy Swaggart Bible College. As ironic as that is. But in November, we're going to have a band called Cryptamnesia on the show. We were on their show, Cole and I were, Wednesday. It's called Dead Man Radio. You can look it up. I believe it's deadmanradio.com. I'm sure Cole will look it up for me. And you can hear the interview. It was a great interview. We actually went an hour over because we wound up talking about paranormal. Now, their show is geared towards strange things, but it is also geared to the horror music genre, which they are a paranormal horror death metal music genre. And we're going to have their band on the show live in studio sometime in November. But they gave us some of their music to play on the show, and they're actually going to create some riffs for us for our intro. So we're going to play a song of theirs called Poltergeist for you guys to enjoy.
Just so everyone knows, you can find Dead Man Radio on KOUVradio.com. That's KOUVradio.com.
Excellent, thank you. I figure you'd be able to get the actual website for us. So this is Cryptamnesia, and it's a song called Poltergeist. If you go on YouTube, you can actually find their channel. It's Crypt, CRYPT, Amnesia, AMNESIA, not to be mistaken for Crypt Amnesia, which is a whole other band. So it's Crypt Amnesia. Anyway, here is their song, and we'll see you when it's over.
You are listening to S4 on Spreaker.com.
They say I'm evil, they say I'm dead inside. Check out my ego, 'cause I'm rotted here tonight. Just burn me like a witch, and watch as I catch fire. But I cannot die, I am your poltergeist. try to kill me, but I cannot die. You try to ignore me, but I haunt you deep inside. You keep trying to kill me, but I cannot die. You try to ignore me, but I haunt you deep inside. They say I'm evil, they say I'm dead inside. Check out my ego, 'cause I want it here tonight. Just burn me like a witch, and watch as I catch fire, but I cannot die. I am your poltergeist. Poltergeist, poltergeist. Poltergeist, poltergeist. Oh, poltergeist, poltergeist. Poltergeist, poltergeist. Oh, you're caving in, the loss of sleep keeps you obsessing on your pride, but in the end you let me in. They say I'm evil, they say I'm dead inside. Check out my ego, 'cause I'm wanted here tonight. Just burn me like a witch, and watch as I catch fire, but I cannot die. I am your motherfucker. They say I'm evil, they say I'm dead inside. Check out my ego, 'cause I brought it here tonight. Just burn me like a witch, and watch as I catch fire, but I cannot die. I am your poltergeist. Poltergeist, poltergeist. Poltergeist, poltergeist. Oh, poltergeist, poltergeist. Poltergeist, poltergeist.
Welcome back to S4 with your host, Eric Cooper.
Welcome back to S4, the voice of the dark side of the paranormal and conspiratorial. Make sure you check our website, www.s-4radio.weebly.com, Spreaker, and on the S4 YouTube channel for all the shows you've missed in the last 3 years. Anyway, back to the show. And I know I said I was going to go ahead and tell you guys a prank that I did that's most memorable. What's up?
Just so everyone knows, that was Crypt Amnesia with Poltergeist. You can find them on YouTube. You can find them on SoundCloud. You can also find them on Deadman Radio at KVOUradio.com.
And they're on every Wednesday night. All right. So I went, and believe it or not, yes, I went to Jimmy Swaggart Bible College back in 1987. And one of my best friends, his roommate, was one of those types that actually went to the mountains to meet God. Highly fanatical, highly religious. Nothing wrong with that. But here's one of those hyper guys. And it was Halloween night. Well, I got together with my buddy and was like, look, get him out of the room. I'm going to roll up under the bed and act like you're going to bed. And I'm going to scare the heck out of him. Well, he got him out of the room. I roll up under the bed. And, you know, within 5 minutes, lights are out. And he's acting like he's going to sleep. So Ron, his roommate, I'm going to go to sleep too. So I'm laying up under this bed. And he's already, you know, kind of freaked out because it's Halloween night and it's supposed to be Devil's Night. Oh my God. And I wait for about 2 minutes. I let him settle down. I reach up. I grab his blanket and I yank on it. And so when I yank on it, I can actually feel it, you know, tighten around him. So he knows something's yanking on his blanket. Now, bear in mind, we're about 3 stories up. There's no way there's something outside the window. So at the same time, I reach over and I kind of bang on the wall. And I feel, I can hear him. I can hear the springs creaking as he's kind of rolling over, going, "What the heck? What was that?" And I give it like 2-3 minutes. I reach up and I yank on his blanket again. And I, of course, those bed springs are really active now as he's kind of rolling around, going, "What the hell?" And I give it 2 more minutes, and the last time I reach up, so bear in mind, as I'm yanking on this blanket, it's starting to come off the bed each time. So the last time I reach up and yank on his blanket, his whole blanket comes flying off the bed. And next thing I know, there's 2 feet come flying out of the bed, and if I was thinking, I would have grabbed his feet, but no. He runs across the room and throws the lights on. "Oh my God, Satan's in the room!" And yeah, it was probably the best prank I think I remember. Great fun. You guys there?
Yep.
Oh. All right. So, Richard, what's your next question?
My question actually is about urban legends. When I was a kid, I remember the big thing my mom always said is, don't never take an apple from somebody on Halloween because they might have razor blades in them. So I'm kind of curious how much the urban legends and the fear of trick or treating has changed since the 60s.
So it's funny you mentioned that because Cole and I were just talking the other day that what did they find? They found THC.
Oh, they found Nerds ropes laced with 400 milligrams of THC. Now these things, they're like, imagine a single Twizzler. And that's the size of this. For anyone that uses marijuana products, that is a lot of THC in one single licorice rope. That is insane.
And that was where did you hear about that? That was on the news, I believe, wasn't it?
King 5 News, yeah.
Yeah, so that's, a valid news source is putting that out. Maybe not razor blades, but you don't want your kids getting 400 milligrams of THC either. So what do we look at when we look at our kids' candy? And that's a very, urban legend or not, I remember hearing that in the 70s when I was a kid. My parents would be checking my candy out because that was a story that went around is people putting poison in kids' candy, people putting razor blades in the candy, in the apples. In rule of thumb, if it wasn't wrapped up, if it wasn't straight from the factory, straight from the store, I didn't get to eat it. And that's kind of the rule of thumb that we go with our kids. Now, when you're looking at THC, again, like Cole and I were talking the other day, is THC is going to be oily. So you want to go into that real quick, Cole? What are they going to look at? What are they going to look for?
So first off, you're going to look for small pinholes in any of the candy. Usually, you got to think that candy's been handled. It's past hand, so any pinholes are going to open up a little bit more. Second thing you're going to look for is if there's a pinhole in the bag, it's automatically going to make the outside of the package oily as well as the inside. So anything like that where you can actually see through the wrapper, which all of those type of candies usually can, you're going to see a small amount of oil in the bottom of the package. Now, if they're buying these straight from the store and not adding a tincture from them, look for candy that you have trouble opening. If you have trouble opening it, that's not made for a kid. There is not a candy in the world out there that a kid can't open, except for usually the marijuana candies. I will say on that one, though, at the same time, if someone's handing out those type of candies, especially nerd ropes that are filled with 400 milligrams THC, those are probably running at about $50 per item. If you're giving that away at Halloween, man, I need a loan. Like, that is a lot of money to be spending on trying to hurt kids.
Completely agree. And, since we're on the topic of safety, some of the pointers that you want to do with your kids, make sure they're well, one, if your kids are going out by themselves trick-or-treating, I would say there's something wrong if they're young. But make sure they're highly visible. Make sure they got a flashlight. Make sure, around here at least, if the lights aren't on outside, we don't even bother knocking on the door because that means they're either not home or they don't want to be bothered. And around here too, we go to downtown Mount Vernon and go trick-or-treating from 3 to 5, and the law enforcement's there with glow ropes and things like that, and stickers they hand out for the kids. But again, make sure, around here, there's law enforcement in all neighborhoods watching trick-or-treaters, making sure everything stays safe anyway. But yeah, I remember hearing those stories about razor blades. Richard, you got anything more to add to it?
No. Like I said, it's just interesting to see how these urban legends and our fears are reflected. I mean, when Eric, you and I were kids, somebody said they're putting THC in, the thing, we wouldn't have known what that is. So it sounds like these fears change as society changes.
Oh yeah, I'd say it's not an urban legend. It's fact. As far as back when we were kids, you don't hear about it so much today. I remember also back then the fire department would check candy for parents. The hospitals would X-ray the candy and the apples and stuff for parents. It was taken serious back then. You don't hear about it so much today other than THC ropes. What do you guys hear about in California, Don?
Actually, not much. It's not. I mean, we check our kids' candy every year just in case, but it's not as we're not as fearful of it because as long as you're checking your kids' candy, you should be good to go.
Right.
We don't really necessarily make it a point to put the fear of God into our children as far as that goes, but California, they don't really X-ray. As far as I know, they don't X-ray. They don't do that stuff that you were mentioning before. And I don't know if that's done statewide or U.S.-wide or anything else like that, but I've never taken my kids' candy to the local hospital to get it X-rayed, so...
No, my parents did. My parents didn't either. They just checked it. If it wasn't in the original wrapper, then I didn't get it. Don't take homemade cookies. Don't take trail mix if it's in a Ziploc bag. Common sense, which seems to be lacking a lot in this world today. But common sense. if it's homemade, and you don't know the people, I wouldn't give it to my kids. Just bottom line. So with that, I've got to ask, what are your guys' plans for Halloween night?
What day is Halloween on this year? Is it on a Wednesday or Thursday?
Yeah, Thursday. So what's your plans? Are you going trick or treating with your kids or?
Oh yeah, definitely that night, and then I get to come home and scare the kids that come to my door. Yeah, I enjoy it. It's my favorite holiday.
See, we're so far up in the mountains, nobody comes to our house, so we don't even mess with it. But we take our kids. We have a ritual that we do. First, we go, like I said, downtown Mount Vernon from 3 to 5. We go, every store owner in the downtown strip is giving out candy. The police are down there. They have a little canopy set up. They give out stickers. They give out glow strips. It takes about an hour to go through the entire main street. Then we go to Grandma's house. We have a pizza party. This year we're teaming up with Cole and Kayla, and we're going with their kids. I don't think we really decided exactly which neighborhood we're going to hit yet. Have we, Cole?
The one with the most closed doors.
Yeah.
If they're not everything, if they're not home, everything's a treat.
Or a trick.
That's my motto.
Or a trick. If their lights are out, we'll trick.
Oh no, I'm still going in. If their lights are on, I'm still going in. I'm finding something.
Oh. So, Richard, I know you don't have kids, but what do you do on Halloween night?
Well, I do have kids, but they're older, so they're off doing whatever they do. I tend to actually kind of sit home a lot of times and watch just scary movies. Trying to, look at more of the psychological thrillers and just kind of contemplate, kind of a quiet evening.
Do you turn your lights out, or do you give out candy?
No. We do put out candy at work. So a lot of the tech companies, they actually bring their kids to work and let the kids go trick-or-treating there. So we put it out on the cubicles and the kids go.
Oh, that's cool. That's cool.
Yep.
And so, Don, do you have a set schedule that you do? I mean, do you have a same place you go every year, and or do you switch it up?
We tend to go where's nearby, and actually where his nearby is the same place I went to in that story that I told you about the Halloween at the base housing.
Oh, okay.
It's now no longer base housing. It's a rental complex, but we take our kids down there, and that's the most active. Halloween in my neighborhood is pretty lackluster due to the heavy population of for lack of a better term, Orthodox Christian people that don't celebrate Halloween. A lot of the schools are not celebrating Halloween anymore because of this in my area.
That's interesting. Since you bring it up, it is a pagan holiday. So it would make sense that, non-pagan religions wouldn't celebrate it. But around here, well, we actually have churches that protest other churches because they're not Christian enough. And on the other flip side of it, we have churches that actually have Halloween parties and stuff like that. So it's kind of interesting on that regard. You do find, of course, houses that are dark. They go out and they do their own thing, or they just don't celebrate Halloween. And that makes sense because it goes by their belief. But I don't know. I'm not going to touch that one anymore.
Well, Eric, to that aspect, there's a lot of churches in my neighborhood that are going the Harvest Festival route, and they don't realize that the Harvest Festival is probably more akin to the pagan holiday of Samhain than the regular trick-or-treating is. Exactly. So they don't realize that they're participating in a pagan holiday still.
Exactly.
We can talk about that next week or whenever in November when we talk about.
We'll go. Yeah, we'll go into that next week for sure. So Cole, growing up, and you're our token Catholic. So I gotta pick on you. What did you guys do growing up?
What do you mean? What do we do? Like, we didn't crucify Jesus or anything.
No, but you guys trick or treated and participated in Halloween, correct?
Oh, so I'm actually quite disappointed in my children because me and my brother used to do a town of almost 2,800 people in one night. We used to cover an entire town, collect 2 pillowcases worth of candy. Although I will say our next door neighbor, she always had one of those 2-quart things of Whoppers. She always had one for each, me and my brother. But we used to do an entire town over the entire night. My kids can barely do 3 blocks and they're tired.
Right. And so Izzy's arguing about the Big Lake neighborhood. And yes, they are, the houses are a little more few and far between, but they give full size candy bars and free coffee. I mean, come on now. Yeah. But we'll probably wind up going to, and I can hear them laughing in the other room, but we'll probably wind up going to Highland, which is where we've taken our kids every year.
But like that was always my lesson of taxes. My dad always taught us there is a candy tax. I took you out trick or treating. I get some of your candy. You know how hard it is to tax 3 blocks worth of candy?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, we're still eating
now,
Halloween. Go ahead.
As much as you say your kids are tired, I would argue that they're probably bored because people in my neighborhood, at least I'm talking from my experiences, when we're walking down the street and there's like 3 blocks of 1, 5 houses down, 1, 6 houses down, another, they just might get bored of it.
No, so up here we usually try and find a neighborhood that is way more active. So what we look for are every second house almost is decorated.
Okay.
If it's decorated, it's pretty much guaranteed that they're going to be home. If they're not, we know they're at a church function. We explain that to the kids. But it's always worth it in some of these neighborhoods because of the decorations that some of these people put up. We saw one last year where there was a giant Beetlejuice inflatable standing in the front yard. And the guy and the lady that were at the house were dressed up as the parents from that movie.
Nice.
Cool. That's cool.
That's fun. I love that.
It's interesting, too. Every year, the decorations get more and more elaborate to where now, like, every third house has one of those video screen images projected on their house. I mean, it's that's part of the fun, too, is, not just the kids getting to trick or treat, but looking at how elaborate some of these folks actually decorate. And again, it's the scary time of the year, so you at least have 1 or 2 haunted houses per neighborhood. So it's kind of cool. So, Richard, what's your next question?
Actually, I was going to talk about Halloween in other countries. So it was, said from what I understand, it's Halloween as we understand traditionally been an American, custom, but it's starting to go to different countries. I've talked to, people from Hong Kong and India, and it's starting to grow. And a lot of times, some of these countries, especially the traditionalists, are very, very opposed to it. So I'm curious what people have seen, in Halloween in other countries. How is it accepted or not accepted?
So when I was stationed in Germany, I was in Germany for 8 years off and on. Germans knew what American Halloween was, but they didn't participate. Now, some German families might take their kids on base because they knew the Americans were doing it. So you would have German kids coming to, base housing or whatnot to trick or treat. But for the most part, in Germany, I can say they really didn't participate. As far as the other countries, I really don't know. It does seem to be more of an American thing, uh, and obviously Canadian, because Cole's from Canada. What's wrong?
Like I said, I've worked with some people from India, and it sounds like it's starting to grow with some of the younger people. They're starting to adapt, especially more in the urban centers. But a lot of, like I said, the older and the more traditionalists see it as sort of an encroachment of, Western culture and even Western decadence. So I wouldn't be surprised if other places may see that as well.
I think it depends on the dominant religion of that country, to be honest with you, because of the aspect that, yes, it is more an American tradition, but if you look at the origin of Samhain and of Halloween, of that particular, time frame, uh, most of your other countries wouldn't participate because of the pagan aspect.
Sure.
So, Don, do you have another question?
Let me look at my list.
Okay.
Well, since we're talking about Halloween in general, do you think the costumes and trick or treating have kind of corrupted the true purpose of Halloween?
Mm-hmm.
And this might go into the more of the pagan side of it that my question's kind of veered towards, but like, do you think that the costumes and trick or treating have mainly commercialized the true purpose of Halloween?
Oh, hands down. I've got to say, originally, as a child, it was explained to me that you're supposed to put a costume on based on what you want it to be, essentially. And I'm sorry, I don't know of too many kids that want to be a cat or a kangaroo or a peacock or, Cheyenne's a peacock this year. But it just, I think it's commercialized in that now kids mostly want to be what they see on TV, mostly want to be their favorite cartoon character, their favorite character. Anthony's Jason Voorhees. um, does he want to be a slasher? No, he doesn't. But he's just intrigued by the horror aspect. But I think it's getting more and more commercialized. I would agree. And what's interesting too, unlike Christmas, so you start seeing Christmas decorations coming out in stores in like August, and in many cases, you see Christmas decorations coming out before Halloween decorations in some stores. Have you guys noticed that?
Yeah.
I think it's based on where the money is.
But Halloween does get its own store. Those Spirit of Halloween stores pop up in every city.
And they make bank.
Oh yeah, they do. But they have the best stuff, and they have the greatest jump scare stuff. So I gotta add. So Kayla did some research, and countries that trick or treat, of course, the United States and Canada, also included the UK, the Republic of Ireland, which Ireland makes complete sense because that's where Samhain really originates.
Yeah.
Puerto Rico, northwestern and central Mexico are places that trick or treat. So UK, as Americanized as it is, um, really makes sense. Again, Ireland makes total sense. Puerto Rico being a sanctioned U.S. country makes sense. And of course, Mexico being right next to U.S. That would make sense.
All right, I think I know where I want to take the kids trick or treating now.
Where?
Puerto Rico's pretty warm right now.
It is.
It is.
Well, so is California.
Yeah, Puerto Rico makes rum.
Okay. I can get on board with that. Okay, where were we? Don?
All right, I got one.
You're muted.
I am muted. So I have a question. How do you think aliens feel about how we celebrate Halloween?
That's an interesting concept. If I was on Mars and I saw someone walking around in a human costume, I think I'd be kind of laughing. That's an interesting thought. What do aliens think about humans dressing up as aliens trick-or-treating for candy? What do you guys think?
I will pose you another question. Do they come out in the open? We don't know it.
Whoa, that was deep. I think, and maybe they trick-or-treat and everyone thinks they're just a kid in a costume.
Like Bigfoot just puts on a belt and all of a sudden he's a Wookiee.
Right.
That's the best Bigfoot costume I've ever seen.
And you're giving that, you're giving Bigfoot extra candy because you're going, wow, that's a realistic costume. Yeah. Yeah, some interesting thoughts. Are aliens among us because we're trick-or-treating? I would agree aliens are among us all the time. But are they taking advantage of Halloween? I don't know. What do you think?
Do you think it confuses them?
No, because how realistic are our costumes? Not that. And I think they can pick up the difference between plastic or cloth and reality with their races.
But just the fact that we're using a mask to hide our faces, using makeup in an extreme way to hide our identity for one night a year, and running around to different people's houses when we ignore our neighbors at all costs any other time of the year. It's got to be a little confusing.
What do you think, Richard?
About whether aliens are among us on what they might think about Halloween costumes?
Yeah.
I don't think they really care. They're probably sitting there watching live. And I don't think it's a big thing to them.
So it would make a good research project if abductions spike during Halloween. Because I would think they would be abducting more out of curiosity of why did this person wear my costume? And Kayla thinks we could tell the difference between a real ET and a Walmart ET. And I would agree.
If that was true, you wouldn't have ran out of that Walmart screaming, Kayla.
Oh. What do you think, Don?
Hey, Don.
Sorry, I was muted. as far as seeing a ET versus a fake one, or just do they care?
Oh, I'll answer that real quick. Hey, Joe. So, do you have a pointy stick for Halloween? So, Joe's in the chat room. He just said there's a report on the scanner tonight. Somebody called the police and said a 7-year-old girl had shown up at her house and wouldn't say anything. The lady said she had a remote residence with no neighbors. And then the kid disappeared, and no one could find her. I'm thinking a black-eyed kid. The funny part about that, though, if it was a black-eyed kid, usually the reports with black-eyed kids is they cause mass destruction or people disappear. Not the black-eyed kid. The black-eyed kid disappears if they aren't allowed in the house. So, who knows? Excellent story, though, Joe. So, Joe is our resident pointy stick expert. And he's going to have pointy sticks to give out for trick-or-treaters, aren't you, Joe?
So, Don, I'm asking whether Halloween confuses
You're muted.
our alien overloads.
You're muted.
Yeah, but they can hear me on yours because I can hear me on yours.
Okay. Where you at, Don?
I'm right here.
All right.
Sorry.
So are they offended? I don't think they're offended. I think they're intrigued, and I think they're curious more than anything.
I would probably agree with that. What's that? The greatest form of flattery is imitation.
I agree. So the reason I bring up an increase in abductions, with a lot of abduction cases, you'll find if the abductee got a new earring or a new tattoo, they would be abducted that night. Because all of a sudden this person, or in their case, this subject, has new colors on their skin or something shiny in a body part, and they're curious about what it is. And that's been documented with a lot of abduction cases. So I would think they would be.
Would an alien consider that self-probing?
Oh, you're just
So I would think, they'd be curious, why is this human or our subject test matter trying to dress up like us now? Something I'll be looking into if abductions rise during Halloween. Out of curiosity. And Joe, you're late tonight. We're about to wrap up. We're 20 minutes out, and you got to go back and listen to the replay because you got to listen to Cryptomnesia. So, Richard.
Yep.
Are you still... so, FMP dropped our team. We're not doing cases anymore, but that doesn't mean you're not doing Astral School for those interested. Just for their own knowledge. Are you doing another Astral School?
I've got a couple of people probably like this last class working with one of our sister teams, kind of doing some training with some of their folks, and then some of the other people expressed interest. So at this point, yes, we've got one more class, final class. And then from there, I'm not sure what's going to be next. But like I said, we want these people that we've committed to and promised for the class. We are going to have a final beginner astral projection class.
Excellent. Yeah, because we don't have a team anymore does not mean we know that you're going to be doing classes, and that's great. So when's your next class for any of our listeners that want to know about Astral?
It starts Tuesday.
It starts Tuesday. Okay, excellent.
Yep.
Excellent. And so I'm going to go ahead and wrap up the show. So, Cole, where can we find Statement of Sound DJ services?
You can find us on Facebook. Am I still muted?
I am. You can find us on Facebook at www.facebook.com/SOSDJPro. I do want to say that we are switching up our program. We are no longer doing weddings and events. We are a straight production service now. So if you need anything, including mastering or commercials made for anything, let me know and I will get back to you.
Outstanding. So I'm
going to go ahead.
What's up?
Just to answer my wife in the chat room, I am not sleeping on the sofa. You are. I only get the love seat. Don't even. I got kicked to the sofa already.
Oh, my God.
All right. So I'm going to go ahead and wrap up the show tonight. I want to thank
Cole Wegleitner, our co-host, Michael Hall, who was on the first hour, our paranormal lawyer, Don Davidson, our California consultant and Army vet, and Richard Benak, our astral instructor. So next week, October 26th, what is Halloween? And why is it such a paranormal day? And we'll also be going into the paranormal aspects of what it means and some of the customs we do. So thank you again for listening to S4. Keep your eyes to the skies. Remember, it's you, our listeners, that give us a reason to produce S4. Stay safe out there, my friends, and we'll see you next week.
Ladies and gentlemen, thank you for joining us tonight on S4, the official voice of Forest Moon Paranormal. You can contact S4 through our website at www.s-4radio.com or on Facebook. Make sure you give us a like on our page and join the Forest Moon Paranormal group. If you are interested in advertising, take a look at our packages and contact Cole or Eric at 1-360-999-2830. Again, thank you. And remember, keep your eyes to the sky.